So yeah, what I think is key about being able to be faster and using AI is that we can use it where it's important, where it's best, but we have the context. We've been working with some of our clients for 5, 10, even 15 years. So we know their industry, we know their competitors, and we know what's important to them. So being able to bring in the value and that partnership and that understanding of their business, I think is the value added on top of the AI that they can't see from just the one study.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dig Inspiration episode. This is where I get to talk with a colleague here at Dig about the episode that dropped last week. So who better to talk to at Dig than Patricia King, who is our very own EVP Global Client Partner, who has, I think, some good, insight to share based on the conversation with Kendra. So Patricia, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to dig in. Kendra covered a lot of ground. You and I know Kendra. She is so inspiring. She has so much energy, so many great ideas. She talked about a lot of things. She talked about purpose. She talked about patience. She talked about the role of AI. And so I thought it'd be really cool to bring you here to chat about that, because part of your role is making sure our most important clients at Dig, we really understand those strategic priorities. We make sure that our relationship and our deliverables are landing. So I'd love to talk about one of the things that Kendra brought up, which is this whole idea about the difference between fast answers and confident decisions. And so from your vantage point, what's the difference between those two things, and how should senior clients be thinking about it?
It's a very good question. I think everyone's all over the place on that right now because there's always the push and pull between fast, confident, better, stronger, all of those things. But it's definitely a conversation I'm having weekly, maybe even daily. I just got off vacation and it was actually the last call I had on Friday. It went till about 5:10 and it was the last thing that came up. Client asked, "How is your team using AI?" And I asked why. And he said, "Because I just got a deliverable. It was great. Not even a typo. So wondering how much you're using AI." And my answer actually was, and we haven't tested this in advance. So like to see your answer to this. I said, probably not enough. And I think it's been a big shift, especially, previously running the qual team. It's the idea that, we are very aware that AI can't do everything. We are aware how important the human is, what they're saying, being in the room with them, hearing the pauses, the eyes, looking around, seeing someone else, reading those open ends in context of how someone answered a survey earlier when as researchers, we're making some of those big statements at the end of a project. So I think that fast is great. Fast is better. We are able to make conclusions faster, but we just have to make sure they're right, because being confident in that information we're giving our clients is everything. If we give them an AI output, if we miss something, if there was an aggressive statement that wasn't actually as aggressive that got pulled out in those findings, that's on us. And I think being able to identify what AI can do and how fast we can get them the answers, but still make sure that we have a human lens on everything is going to be the most important.
Yeah. And Kendra shared that example of her class that she's teaching and the kind of focus group they did and how they used AI to generate the deliverable, and that it was their-ish. And I thought that was so powerful, because you did need to understand what's that body language, what was the conviction with which a certain, opinion was shared. Those are the things that you lose if you don't bring in the human element. I thought those were great examples.
So yeah, what I think is key about being able to be faster and using AI is that we can use it where it's important, where it's best, but we have the context. We've been working with some of our clients for 5, 10, even 15 years. So we know their industry, we know their competitors, and we know what's important to them. So being able to bring in the value and that partnership and that understanding of their business, I think is the value added on top of the AI that they can't see from just the one study.
So you've partnered with a lot of clients, one being Opella. Jennifer spoke with us at Quirks New York last year about this, that are really intentionally pursuing transformation. So in those times of transformation, how do we make sure that leaders really stay aligned when their strategies and their structures that are still being built? Like, how do we do that?
Well, that's an interesting one. When I read that question, the first thought that came to my mind is transformation is messy, and people think it's going to be fast and that we're going to put processes and structures in place and everyone's going to jump on board and everyone's going to follow them. And no matter if it's a large organization like Opella or a smaller company like Dig, you just want things to move fast. And I think when we think about transformation, we have to think about patience, and there's going to be a lot of iteration, and being able to find the right person to lead that and the right partners to get on board and go with you on your whole entire journey is the key. So I think thinking about early transformation, maybe not everything's completely defined, knowing that the researchers within your company, the brand marketers, the strategists. Not everyone's going to necessarily be in the same place at the same time. They're going to have different processes. It's going to take a lot of work to get them on board, a lot of trust, a lot of partnership, and a lot of support. So I think that when we think about transformation, especially agile transformation, the place that many partners are in now, knowing that we want to be agile and faster, but it might have to slow down before we get there.
Yeah, sometimes you have to, what is it, walk to run or whatever the saying is. I think that that's so true for agile transformation. And you know what I am thinking about? As you know, last year, or maybe it was in 24, we lost a major global RFP for an agile
Hmm.
program, which still really hurts, right? But what's really interesting about that is they still have not gotten that program up off the ground, which
Oh.
is telling, you know? So, and so it is something where you need to have the right people in place to do the right level of, I think, deploying that program for it to be adopted. But it's an ongoing hustle, right? You have to make sure that users are engaged. You need to make sure that the right stakeholders have the right success measures in place. There's so many moving parts. And that's one of the things I think we tend to do pretty well at Dig. I think that's why clients really love to bring us those opportunities. So who knows, that client that turned us down, they might come back. They might come back
You're
calling
hoping they hear this right now, aren't
us.
you?
Yeah. I'm like,
No,
wait,
and
what?
I think that at Dig, one of the big parts of transformation is being able to walk a little bit slow before you run, being flexible, and I would say not necessarily as a sales pitch, but the fact that we do have the team we have in place, the support to be able to help all of those teams that are playing different games at different times in many ways. They have the support to get them there regardless what they need to become more agile, because a lot of them, even those first few projects might not necessarily feel agile to them when it's a huge learning curve.
Right. You're right. Exactly. So you work across a lot of our enterprise clients. What do they increasingly want from insights partners? Where do you think some of the gaps are?
I would say this is where maybe it's the biggest thing that has moved, because when you talk to a lot of our partners now and they talk about AI, everyone's using AI. They think they can do a lot of things themselves. But I would say a lot of the teams are moving faster and they're expecting us to move faster because they're expected to move faster. And they have all these tools at their disposal and they can generate their own outputs and they can do their own searches and they can like look at data sets faster and looking at bigger data sets. And I think it's a big realization that, they need support from us on how to move faster, but then how to move, I would say, strategically, intelligently, not
Yeah.
just using the tools for the sake of using them and then pulling it all together, because they have probably bigger expectations on them, and trying to bring that all together needs a partner that understands how all the tools can be used, how all the different methodologies come together, and how to identify the patterns in all of that data and make it useful and not just have outputs, but have outcomes that they can use to help make better decisions.
Ooh, that's good. Not just outputs, but outcomes. That's very
Yeah.
good. And I think that is part of the reason that we're observing this migration moment for clients, right? Because they do have this pressure to go faster, do things in a more efficient way, but they can't give up the strategic depth. I mean, that's the trade-off that they simply cannot make. So yeah, I mean, I expect clients to become more demanding in that way, right?
Yeah.
It's what the industry is telling them to do, which we're here for it.
And I think one of the things they want, a term I've used many times, is strategic courage. And I use that comes from a qualitative background, because with quantitative, you often see a table. Some quant researchers will disagree with me, but you see a table and here's what the table's telling you. And 600 people did this survey, 1,000 people did this survey, and some said yes and some said no. And I always say in qual, you talk to 30 people, you saw their faces, you had a conversation, and only 12 people said something. You have to have the strategic courage to say, this is what I think the recommendation is. This is why it's important to your business. And this is why I'm giving you the POV that I'm giving you. And I think right now, a lot of researchers, again, are in the situation. There's a lot of self-serve, DIY, AI. They're expected to do a lot on their own, probably more than ever. And they need the support and the knowledge and the POV from us to have that strategic courage to put the right recommendations forward.
Yeah. I was at a client a couple of months ago and we were demonstrating one of our newer features within Dig One. And this feature happens to take a few minutes to develop the
Hmm.
deliverable. And they said, why does it take a few minutes? Like that should only take 20 seconds. And it's a fair comment. And it needs to be put within the context of what is the value of the output that you're getting? What is the outcome that comes from that output? And can we tie that back to the number of minutes that it takes? Because I do think that the expectation of immediacy is creating some interesting pushes and pulls on certain types of deliverables. So I guess it's just a comment on this whole trade-off between speed and substance, speed and strategic depth. Sometimes it is going to take a couple minutes, but you're going to get a much better answer than if it's immediate. Do you think clients are going to accept that?
I,
What's your
I think they should, because last week I always call that the Amazon effect, how none of us want to wait for shipping anymore. And I
yeah.
wanted a pair of sneakers for my vacation, an expensive pair of sneakers, and I ordered them on Amazon instead of the ones I wanted from the retailer, and I'm not as happy with them. They'll do the job. Absolutely do the job, but not what I wanted. And I think that for clients, that I think they'll realize that quickly. I think Dig's always shown that value in that, sometimes we have a more complex solution we have in the past. We want to do it right. We'll push back on what we think is too fast, maybe not the right solution for the client, and you end up with a better outcome.
Yeah.
So I think that there'll be a bit of a pendulum swing. At some point, you'll realize that sometimes it's worth waiting for.
There you go. Okay. Any words of wisdom you want to leave us with here today?
Well, I was thinking, as I was reading about AI, and I know most of this conversation is about speed, and that's just the name of the game right now. And we do everything we can to keep up and give the best solutions. But I think realistically, if you think about where we're going, Future of Insights is more human. We have a lot more being done effectively, efficiently from AI. We're speeding up. We can do things faster, but now we have more time to think. So I think that, all the pressures that we're seeing to use the computer just gives us a little bit more thinking time. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me and sharing your perspective. Again, I know you and I both really value Kendra a lot. It was a great conversation with her and a great follow up with you. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Like what you heard? Share the inspiration or head to diginsights.com to learn more about what we do.